It is Monday, June 30th. We are here for negotiations with the police union. I'm sorry, I have no idea what negotiation meeting this is, but we had wrapped up most items at our last meeting. But the city had asked that we would like to bring language that is currently held in the personnel administration rules and roll that into contract. I broke each item into its own proposal so it's easier for us to get through.
Do you think they want 8?
Well, I didn't know how many of them were going to be here.
How many do you want, guys?
Do you want extras?
No.
Marisa already has one.
2 it is.
So our first proposal is number 17, and this is addressing leave of absence without pay. I put the PAR language at the bottom. Basically, we struck A and B and kind of rewrote it into item B. So we will maintain that the chief of police may direct a physical, psychological, or polygraph examination for anyone returning from a leave of absence. And then leave of absences will follow the city policy as defined, and then failure to return to work will constitute a voluntary resignation. Skip 18? What am I doing here? What did I just hand out?
18.
That's great, I didn't keep one for myself. Okay, let's try this again. 18, this addresses re-employment after a voluntary resignation. So I put the PAR language down below. The one thing that we changed is we're no longer calling these appointments because they're not, they're hires. So that language has been corrected everywhere. And then I think that's pretty much, that the employee would have had to complete their probationary period when they voluntarily terminated before they would be eligible for a rehire. City 19 addresses residency. We made no change to this policy. We did tack on one line that says take-home vehicles will comply with City of Pocatello policy. I know there's policy in place about distance, and that's held in policy, not in contract. We just wanted to put that caveat does apply here. City 20 addresses sworn officer promotions. These were the biggest changes we had in the PAR because we had to address the non-competitive corporal. So I've tried to break this down for all of the promotional language, so there is no previous language because it was already kind of long, and sorry, it's stapled weird. So we define the corporal as a threshold-based promotion. Any officer who meets the minimum defined criteria will be eligible for the rank. Competitive is defined for sergeant, so we don't go above sergeant because anything above that is not subject to the collective bargaining agreement. And then section C we put in what the criteria was. And then the next paragraph, sorry, I should have line numbered this. If you are eligible at any time during the promotional testing window to promote, you would then be eligible to test. Section D is scoring. This is where we really need to make sure we understand. I put the written test, the career path, which will be defined in police policy or the PAR, the assessment lab, longevity points, and then the oral board. So for sergeant, we put the test will be graded on a curve and they must score 75. For a corporal, it's a flat score basis and they must score a 70. If they don't hit those minimum points, they do not continue on in the process. Their promotional efforts just stop at that point. Career path, 100 points possible. We put a 60-point minimum for the corporal since it is non-competitive. And then any points for sergeant, so whatever points they get would be added to their testing score. Assessment lab, further on in the document, I have more language on that, but it didn't fit in the little box. Longevity points, no change there. I did put that longevity points will not continue to accrue once the test has been completed. So where your longevity points were at that testing threshold is where they stop until the next period. The next big changes under the eligible register. Okay, number 8, I think. Nope, let me find it. Sorry, the red line was unreadable. Right there, number 2, on page 3. Examinations develop eligibility will be given in March of odd numbered years. So we'd give it every other year. So that's mostly specific to sergeant. That one's gonna take some reading from you guys. Yeah. I can give you the red line, but it's just a lot harder to read.
Oh, it still says fire stations.
Yeah. We matched that to fire, so I might have some typos in there you need to help me find. A person can only stare at the same contracts for so long.
Mm-hmm.
So consider proposal 20 a working document between the two of us. But I know you're gonna need to read it before you can give much feedback. City proposal 21 addresses the sworn officer lateral transfers. So we extended the years of experience and steps. Sorry, apparently I have the backside page. And then on page 2, for the hours of lateral vacation time that we established last year, we are gonna separate that out from the vacation bank to a lateral vacation bank. It'll be populated once and then no other accruals will go in it. The reason we're separating it is so there's no cash value. That's a use or lose, that does not pay out. City proposal 22 is lateral transfers for emergency communication officers. Same adjustment on page 2, hours of lateral vacation that does not pay out.
I almost made it back.
Sorry. And then 23, I wasn't sure what it was until I talked to the chief. For initial hire and promotional reexamination, this currently exists in the PAR exactly as worded. I just matched it over so that's in contract. I know I threw a lot at you to read, and number 20, we definitely need to work together through because there's some typos and edits, but it was hard to write without full-on union feedback in that one. That moving to a non-competitive corporal is a whole other process we've never done before. So I have, I believe, Paradise set aside for you.
Okay. Yeah, we can caucus for a little bit, that'd be great.
All right, it's 9:15. And I'll work on 20 to edit.
Thank you.
20 is a mouse. We're back, it's 9:51 a.m. On the table in front of you is a revision to number 20 from what we handed out earlier. I did redline any changes, so those are easier for you to identify. There's a couple yellow highlights in there that reference a section number. That section number will change once we plug this into the contract. So if you don't mind, I'll go through the changes on 20. Under assessment lab, we moved the lab to 250 points. We struck the oral board / interview. Apparently we were only doing that for corporal. So we just struck the whole oral board section, which I'm guessing means I have language later on I need to correct. I took out the corporal part of the interview panel because we won't have that. On line 33, I put in line numbers so we could talk intelligently about what my mess is here. We added for sergeants, it'll be testing in March of odd years. However, for 26, we will have one off-cycle test to get a list established, and that will be in January of 26. And then corporal examinations will be offered in April and October of each year. So our first test would be October of 25. I removed fire stations. And I think that is most of the changes.
So just for clarification, so the test for sergeant would be conducted in January of 26, and then the next testing cycle would be March of 27.
Correct, and then they'd be odd years after that, unless the list exhausts. But hopefully we can develop a culture of anyone who's eligible starts testing. Yeah. I know it's a lot of work to put those assessments on and a lot of prep for the employees.
Yeah, for sure.
I've seen the packets.
One of the things that we saw was line 47.
Okay.
Says the criteria used in assessing points in the staff interview will be posted.
So the staff interview, as I understand, is part of the assessment center, apparently for sergeant above the chief and senior staff meet with the candidates. Yeah, and that'll be better defined in the PAR or wherever it is we assign the assessment lab, but we wanted to put that it will be posted so people know that what the criteria will be.
Okay, I gotcha.
It's hard to prepare for something if you don't know what it is.
Yeah, for sure.
If you'd like to reword that, please let me know.
No, we were just thinking you meant the oral interviews, like the.
It worked
oral
either
board,
way.
so
We're just gonna say my mistake worked out all right.
We've just never used that term staff interview, so that's why we wanted to make.
I
sure
didn't know what to
that
call it.
No, I'm good with that.
Okay.
Like I said, we've never used it, but that is actually a recent thing that we started doing like this last time.
Yeah, it's very new.
So I'm good with that.
Are you good with the 45 days prior to examination? Does that fit your current practice?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think so. Has the, like IDAP and everybody resolved all the conflicts with like lateral transfer years and how that
The chief provided that information for the contract, so I would have
Okay.
to ask him when he steps back in.
So I know for me personally, being a not lateral, but from a different sector of law enforcement, it threw a big snafu into my promotion testing. Because IDAPA changed their definition of police officer. And it included detention, where previously it
It
didn't.
did not.
And so there was 3 years of eligibility that I received that the year prior other people didn't. So it turned into this whole thing. And I believe we're past the window where that would matter anyways, because it's been in effect for at least 3 years.
We can easily add a line that just says pursuant to currently adopted IDAPA standards, if that would provide clarity.
Yeah, just because at least for my own personal experience, like the years of service you would think would be easy to calculate, but it became difficult because of that change.
So just an asterisk under section C that says pursuant to IDAPA current standards?
Yeah,
I think
that's
that would
fine.
address,
That's
it
what
would
they
address the
used,
confusion.
So, yeah.
IDAPA supersedes the contract anyway,
But
Well,
that
it's-
way people know.
and then they have that understanding. That's
They,
right.
then they can look at it and they can go to IDAP and read it for themselves and
Okay.
determine.
I just put
That's
an
fine.
asterisk in and then pursuant.
I think that would
ID.
alleviate any of that, am I eligible or not?
That's a good question, because I wouldn't have, that's just so far outside of my area.
I wouldn't have
caught
either
it.
if I hadn't.
You didn't fight the battle?
If I didn't have to have many conference calls within 12 hours about that.
Oh.
So,
Okay. Good with that, sir.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that addressed the concerns that I had.
Yeah, I think once if we need to add that in first before ETA it, or we
I'll
ETA it
just-
and then add it in,
I'll
whatever,
write it in and we'll both initial.
that works.
All right, do we want to start at 17 then?
Yeah. We are good to TA that as is.
Can we just go through them and tell me which ones we TA?
We're gonna TA all of them.
All right.
Yeah, 20 is the only one we have questions about, so.
I'll let you number all those. So here's everything but 20 revised.
Okay.
Yep.
If there's a second page, do I need to TA the second page?
No. Word 1, I couldn't get it to not show up on each page. And what would you like to do with 20 revised?
With TA.
You can TA. And if you can initial with what we added. I anticipate there will be changes to many of these sections next year,
Yeah.
but this gives us enough of a
Where you can
Starting-
start
starting
backbone
point.
where we can see what works and what doesn't.
TA.
And then I think that takes care of everything open on the table. Are you aware of anything else? Anything new pop up from your side?
Nope.
Well, gentlemen, this was a great meeting.
Yep.
Yeah.
I will get a red line of the contract ready.
Okay.
It's gonna be atrocious.
Sure.
So I will send a clean one as well.
Okay.
We normally have this go through the union before it goes to council, and we usually adopt in the first meeting of September.
Okay.
Sounds good. Yeah, as soon as we get the full contract, we'll put it out for ratification. So.
All right, well, let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, thank you for your efforts. It's 9:59.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.